Yeah. Now, yesterday we have seen the basic example of the Spring here. Now we have seen with Pojo class and with the client and configuration with loosely coupled application. Okay. The same way here, whatever that application we did, that with that application we can add with the has a relation. Okay. Now, yesterday our Pojo class is employee. Now today I'm going to add with address. Okay. Now this employee has a address. Okay, this employee has a address. The same example we'll take it. Now we are going to add an extra address class. Okay, yeah, see you. Yeah, first I will execute. Now right click run as Java application. Yeah, we got output. Now extra I'm going to adding the address class. Now right click. Before going to that, now here we executed only like by using property tag. Okay, the property tag in the sense the concept is a setter methods. Okay, now basically we have two types of injection. Okay, two types of injection. First one is like a setter injection, and the second one is like a constructor injection. Okay, now in the setter injection, now we can use a property tag. Okay, in the constructor injection, we can use a constructor arg tag. We can use it. Okay, now each property tag is using some setter methods. Now set emp ID, set emp name, set emp salary, set emp address. Now whenever you are setting the value, you are going to be setting into that 129 like something name, something value, something address. Okay. Now it is about the setter methods. For suppose I want to go with, okay, I want to go with like a constructor injection. Okay, constructor injection. Now if it is a constructor injection, now then how I can add the properties. Okay, for suppose I can make it as control F. Now here I can write a property. Now where we have the property, I want to mention constructor R. Okay, now the find and replace it. Okay, close it. Now we have that constructor arg we entered. Okay, for the same bean. Now for the constructor, if you are using the constructor way, we don't need use any names. We don't need any names. Value is enough. Okay, now control is I'm trying to execute, right click, run as sorry, not here, go to the client, right click, run as Java application. Now we are getting some error. Okay, the error in the sense like error creating the bean with structure defined in the class path resource and the seer could not resolve matching constructor. Okay, now here the data you are inserting based on the constructor reference. Okay, but a parameter constructor. Do we have any parameter constructor in our class in the sense like no? Okay, we are not created anything. Now simply I'm going to create like one parameter constructor. Now go to the source. Now constructor using fields and generate it. Okay, now we created like a parameterizer constructor. Now control s. Now go to the client. Now right click, run as Java application. Okay, now here we got output through constructor reference. Now the setter methods also we are going to get, and the constructor reference also we are going to get. My requirement here for the single bean. Okay, here we have only one bean. For the single bean, I want to execute both. Okay, for the property tag as well as uh, like constructor, the both I want to execute at a time. Okay, now is it possible or not? We'll see that. Okay, now both property and constructor, the two things we have. I'm going to change some values now 100, now 80, something like 4999, like LG. Control S. Now here in the single bin we have only one bin. I am using like constructor arg reference, like constructor injection and a setter injection. Okay, if I execute, what is the output right now? Okay, now basically here we are going to get output like about key. Okay, now First the output is Deepika, then after it change it to override to with Kirti. Why? In the sense, whenever that object is created, okay, first it will call that constructor arg, then later it will create Kirti. Now see, now go to the client, right click, run as Java application. Okay, now we got Kirti. Now not only that place here, even though if I use this property tag before the constructor arg, it will execute the same output. Okay, it's not related to like the place wherever you use it. It's not. It's about like property. Right click, run as Java application. Now here the same output we are going to get. Okay. Now you can use any way. If you want to go with like constructor, now you can use the constructor archetype. If you want to use a property, you can use like setter methods, or if you can use the property tag. Okay. Now like this, now we can use the constructor arc. Okay. Yeah. Now the requirement here, till now we have only one employee class. That's why we have only one bean. Okay. Now we have bean in the sense like it's an object. Okay. Which object? Employee object. Okay. Now how many Pojo classes we have? Only one Pojo. For that one bean only we have. Now I'm going to create like one more Pojo class. Now right click on the com.demo, new, create a class that is address. Okay. Now the address, simply here we can create like private int house number. Now private string colony, uh, private in string state, private in pin. Okay. Now right click on that, go to the source, generate get and status. Sorry, right click, go to the source, generate get and status. Now select all, generate it, and we need default constructor. Now control space enter, and again I'm going to enter toString method also. Now go to the source, generate toString method. Now generate it, and we need param constructor. Right click, go to the source, generate constructor use. Generate it. Now control S. Okay. Yeah, this is about like address class. Now, if I execute, I want to go with whenever that employee is executed, along with the employee, I want to go with like address also. Okay. For suppose I'm going to provide in the configuration.xml one more bean for address class. Okay. Now bean, open and close. Now for this bean, which class? Simply it's a address class. Now class is equal to, now our address class is present in com.demo.address. Now you can give some id. I'm going to give that id is add. Okay. Now here we can use a property tag. Now property open, property close, within that house number. Okay, whatever the fields here you mentioned, the same fields you need to write there. Okay, then only it will execute. ఓకే, ఇక్కడ ఏదైతే ఫీల్డ్స్ మెన్షన్ చేసామో పోజో క్లాస్ లో సేమ్ ఫీల్డ్స్ ఇక్కడ కంపల్సరీ మెన్షన్ చేయాలి. ఓకే, హౌస్ నెంబర్. నౌ ద వాల్యూ ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు కంట్రోల్ కాపీ, హౌస్ నెంబర్, కాలనీ, స్టేట్, పిన్ కోడ్. లైక్ పిన్ కోడ్, state, column. Now that house number 123, like colony, state, or like pin code 74. Okay. Now I provided employee class and I provided like address class information. Now I'm trying to execute. Go to the client, right click, run as Java application. Now see here, if you observe only the key information, the employee information like we got. Then what about like address class? Okay, the address class is we created, that's okay, but we are not linked anywhere, right? Okay, it's not linking with any employee. Okay, the address class is not linking with an employee. Now that's why what I'm going to do here. Now in the employee class we have how many fields, like employee ID, employee name, and employee salary, employee address. Okay, this employee address I can remove it. Okay, I can remove everything. See here, objectively I'm going to write again. See here, now I'm going to write a private address, address. Now, you know that like it has a relation. Okay, it has a relation. Now, that extra within the employee class, one more class object I created. Okay, you know that that is has a relation. Now, in the employee class, how many fields we have? Employee ID, employee name, employee salary, and again, one more class is there. Okay, then right click on that, go to the source, generate getters and setters, select all, generate it. Now, control space, employee constructor. Now, control S and right click, go to the source, generate toString method, generate it, and again right click, go to the source, generate constructor using field to create param constructor. Okay, now employee class is done now. Okay, now if you go with like configuration file, okay, we don't have any employee address, right? Instead of that employee address, what we have, address class is there. Okay, the name is what, address only. If you observe in the employee class, the name is what, address, the same thing. Okay, int, we are not mentioning any int type and any string type. Like here we have mentioned the fields, employee id, employee name, employee salary, address, the same thing I mentioned here. Okay, employee name, employee salary, address. Okay, but what about like value here? Okay, we are not going to mention any value here. Okay, we are not going to mention any value. Why? In the sense, when our employee is executed, I want to execute the address also. Okay, now this entire address, okay, we are going to reference to that. Okay, we are going to reference to that employee class. Now it's a reference attribute is equal to, now whatever the ID you provided for address class, the ID you need to pass to this reference add. Now here both are linking with each other now. Okay, now the entire address class is referred to as for this address name. Okay, now if I'm going to execute, go to the client, right click, run as Java application. Now I hope like we got yes here, employee ID, and along with the address we got to enter address. Okay, now like that we can add that as a relations with the employee with address. Okay, now observe carefully here. Okay, this is about like has a relation. There will be a chance here we have only one address class has a relation. Or suppose we have one more thing, private, like some salary, 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 and again, for suppose private demo, demo, some for suppose private some bonus, bonus. Okay, if we have like this number of hazard relations, now in the spring config.xml, we need to provide the number of references. Okay, if we provide the number of references, the number of lines are increasing, right? Okay, the number of lines are increasing. Okay, the number of lines are increasing, the performance is going down. Okay, now without mentioning like this, all these the dependencies or has a relation, now we are going to add with one more concept, that is auto wire. Okay, now auto wire attribute. Okay, now the auto-wire attribute we are going to add in the configuration.xml. Okay, observe carefully here. If I comment the 19th line, now what is output right now? Okay, I'm going to comment 19th line. Comment. Control S. Okay, if I execute again, see here, observe carefully. I commented this address. Okay, 19th line. Go to the client, right click, run as Java application. Now see here, we got only key T, but address is a null. Okay, now without writing multiple references like this, I can use one attribute that is above the class. Okay, within the class of employee being, now we can use one attribute, auto where attribute. Okay, auto where we have by default, we have that three values, four values basically. By default is the default. Now by name and by type and constructor. Okay, by name and by type and constructor. and a default also we have. Now the auto-where attribute we have by default is the default. Okay. Now so by name, by type, and constructor. Okay. Now this by name and by type is used for whenever you are working with the property tag. Whenever you are working with the property tag. Now the constructor auto-where attribute we can use whenever you are working with the constructor arg tag. Okay. Now here we are working with like property, right? Okay. Now you can go with like a by name or by type. Then what is the difference between them? Okay. Then what is the difference between them? Now here, yeah, where we are. Okay. Now if it is a by name and a by type, now we can go with like a property tag. And if it is a constructor in a sense, like we can use a constructor arg tag, we can use it. Now, if you observe auto while, I'm going to use like a by type. Okay. I'm going to use a by type. Yeah. Control S. Go to the client. Now right click, run as Java application. If you observe here, we got output. That address also we got it. Okay. If you observe in the spring config.xml, we are not going to use any difference. Even if you're not using the reference, okay, now we got output. Okay. Now we got output. We, yeah. Now by tag, if I using by tag, we are getting output. But we are using property tag only, right? Okay. For this property tag, we are using, we have the two values for the property tag. Now by name and by tag. Okay. Now we'll try to add by name and we'll observe that output like what we are going to get. Now instead of that by type, we are going to add a by name. Okay. Now control S, go to the client. Now right click, run as Java application. Something we got it. Oh yeah. Address is null. Okay. By type is working, but by name is not working. What's the purpose of by name? Okay. Now the attribute of the by name is, okay, the attribute is a by name is looking for id of address is the same as, no, sorry, like a employee class address class object is the same as id of bean address is the same, then only it will execute. ఓకే అర్థమైందా? ఈ బై నేమ్ ఏం చేస్తుంది అంటే ఈ ఎంప్లాయీ క్లాస్ లో ఉన్న అడ్రస్ క్లాస్ యొక్క ఆబ్జెక్ట్ ఆర్ ఫీల్డ్ నేమ్ ఏదైతే ఉందో ఈ నేమ్ యాజ్ వెల్ యాజ్ కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ ఫైల్లో బీన్ ఆఫ్ అడ్రస్ ఐడి షుడ్ బి సేమ్. ఓకే, దెన్ ఓన్లీ ఇట్ విల్ ఎగ్జిక్యూట్. ఓకే, అదర్వైజ్ సింప్లీ ఇట్ విల్ నాట్ ఎగ్జిక్యూట్. ఇక్కడ చూడండి, నేను ఎంప్లాయీ క్లాస్కి వెళ్ళి ఈ అడ్రస్ క్లాస్ ఇది కాపీ చేసుకుంటా, ఈ నేమ్ కాపీ చేసేసుకొని నా ఈ ఐడిలో యూజ్ చేస్తా. Now control S. I am using by name, right? If I'm using the by name, that ID of address with a bean and employee of the address class of address object is both are same. Now I'm going to execute right now. Now we'll see that output. Right click on a Java application. See here we got output that employee has some address. Okay, employee has some address. The entire data we are going to get. Okay, now it is by using property tag. Okay, by using property tag, but I want to go with the constructor arg. Okay, I want to go with like a constructor arg. Now we'll see that. I'm going to try to first copy this thing. Okay, to paste it here. Now instead of that property, now where we have that no property, I can go with the constructor. Yeah. Now everything is constructor arg, right? Okay. Now, if it is a constructor arg, we need to use what auto wire. We can use what auto wire constructor. Okay. Now we don't need any names, right? If it is a constructor, we don't need any names. Okay. Now I'm going to use. I'm going to take time to execute. I hope like we are getting error. I think. Now, right click, run as Java application. Now see, we are getting error. See here, no qualifying bean, the bean into type of available. ఇక్కడ చూడండి మనకి ఎందుకు ఎర్రర్ వచ్చింది అంటే నా సత్య డిఫైన్ ద క్లాస్ ఎస్ మనం ఇక్కడ గో టు ద స్ప్రింగ్ కాన్ఫిగ్ డాట్ ఎక్స్ఎంఎల్ ఇక్కడ మనకు 3నే ఉన్నాయి పారం కన్స్ట్రక్టర్లు కానీ మీరు ఎంప్లాయీ క్లాస్కి వెళ్ళి చేస్తే చూడండి ఇక్కడ 4 ఉన్నాయి అంటే ఏంటి ఆ కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ అనేది కన్ఫ్యూజ్ అవుతుంది మీరు టైప్ ఆఫ్ డాటాను మెన్షన్ చేయండి నేను ఐ విల్ ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అని చెప్తాను అనమాట ఓకే or suppose this type okay basically the value should be always within the string format only now we need to mention type is equal to int I'm going to mention okay I'm trying to execute okay client right click run as Java application now still we are getting error I'm going to add some more things now here also type is equal to int I'm trying to execute go to the client right click run as Java sorry Java application now see we got output okay now that's confusing like which one is a int and which one is a string okay now we have only 3 values that's the reason now we need to mention that employee and address okay now like this now we can use the has a relation the both the property tag and the constructor arg reference okay now because of an attribute also every time we need to use attribute it's a difficulty okay that's why we'll go with the first annotation in the spring auto wire annotation at the data auto wire annotation okay now instead of using that attributes okay now these annotations are okay now annotations are alternate for xml okay annotations are alternate for xml okay instead of using auto wire attribute okay instead of using auto wire attribute we can use add the data auto wire annotation okay now without mentioning every time like the constructor and like by name and by type all these things now we'll go with like directly the auto wire attribute but suppose simply I can take this one. Mm, yeah I can remove this one here observe carefully auto wire I'm removing okay basically if I remove auto wire the address is not printing right okay address is not working yes or no now go to the client right click run as Java application see here address is a null but I want output okay now we are going to add the annotation okay we are going to add the annotation auto where now where we need to add okay now we need to go with the auto where annotation here observe carefully here go to the employee class above the address we can mention auto where it will wire the object immediately okay Now auto wire in the sense like wiring object internally. Now at the data auto wire. Okay, at that auto wire control is it will wire the object internally. Now go to the client class, right click, run as Java application. Now see here still we are getting address is null, but I mentioned like auto wire attribute, right? Why we are getting still null? Okay, the thing is what here we are using the bean factory. Okay, the bean factory is not supporting for annotations. Okay, I told you like the bean factory we can use for the small applications like even though like bean factory also it's looking for that a bean life cycle. Okay, now it will take care about like bean life cycle, but it's only the small cases. But if you want to go with like one more container we have. Okay, did you remember like one more container? We have the two types of containers, the bean factory and
Bean factory.
and application context.
Okay.
Okay, now observe carefully here. I'm going to comment these two lines. We don't need this container right now. Okay, we don't need this container. Now we'll go with the annotations. For this annotations, the bean factor is not supporting. Now application context. Okay, application context. The same. I'm using the film factory is equal to new the class path XML application context. Okay, class path XML application context here. This thing we need to take it. Okay, now here I can enter the same file name, whatever we have here. Control V, Control Shift O to import the package of application context interface thing. Okay, now I'm trying to execute. Right now, again, we have the two lines of code. See here, application context factory is equal to new class path XML application context. We provided file information, and yeah, the same factory. I'm getting the bean without changes anything. Okay, now right click, run as. I'm trying to execute Java application. Now see here, we got output right now. See here, we got address. Okay, the thing is what we are wiring the address internally by using auto wire annotation. Okay, wiring. Okay, object. Okay, internally by using annotation of auto wire. Okay, ఇదంతా బానే ఉంది మరి. If you observe that configuration file, we are using property type. Okay, property అంటే auto wire values 2 ఉన్నాయి. బై నేమ్ ఉంది, బై టైప్ ఉంది. మరి ఇందులో ఈ ఆటో వైర్ అండ్ బై నేమా బై టైపా? That is also we need. Okay, we have the two values right for the property tag. Okay, by name or by type. Okay, here it is a by type. Okay, it is a by type. See here. Okay, by type in the sense like we need to change some name right here. Like it's not some. I can mention Satya. Okay, even though if it is Satya, like I can mention like this. Okay, still I'm going to execute. Right click run as Java application. Now the names are not same by type. But in the case of I'm using the same name Satya here. Okay. Now I'm applying by name. Okay. I'm going to comment this auto annotation where you can apply the by name. Okay. By name you can apply above the set address. It is a get address. It is a set address. Above the set address, we can apply at the data auto annotation. Okay, now this annotation is looking for by name. Basically by name అంటే ఏంటి, ఈ అడ్రస్ క్లాస్ యొక్క నేమ్ అండ్ కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ ఐడి యొక్క నేమ్ సేమ్ ఉండాలి. ఇక్కడ చూడండి ఈ నేమ్ డిఫరెంట్ ఉంది, ఇక్కడ ఉన్న నేమ్ డిఫరెంట్ ఉంది. అయినా సరే now we can execute. Right click run as Java application. We'll get that outputs here. The annotation will take care, the address name everything annotation will take care. We don't need to worry about like if you have the by type we don't need to change, and if you have the by name we need to change. Okay, these things we need to do that if it is auto attribute. But in this case like if it is annotation we don't need to use anything. Okay, we don't need to change anything, just annotation when you want to place like for which address class as a relation we can use that auto annotation. Okay, if you want to work with the by name you can go with like set address. Okay, now it's acting as a by name. Then what about like constructor? Okay, what about like constructor? Now here if it is a constructor, now you can copy it here, copy. Now instead of this thing, okay, it is a constructor, right? Okay. Now I can remove this one. I can remove this one. Control S. Now go to employee class. Above the param constructor, you can use auto annotation. At the rate auto annotation. Now control S. Go to the client. Right click. Run as Java application. Now see here the constructor also working. Okay, everything is working. Okay. Now like this, we can see the okay auto annotation. Okay. Now the spelling bit like has a relation with the auto annotation. We avoided we avoided the reference. Okay, we avoided, and again auto attribute also we avoided. Will directly enter into that annotation. Okay. Now these things are done enough today. Now tomorrow the same project whatever did we executed right now, the same project will work with Maven. Okay, how we need to create a Maven? What is a Maven? What is the purpose of Maven? What it will do? Okay, the same project, how I can execute this Maven, and as well as we need to go with the we can remove that XML part. Okay, now this XML part we can remove it. Now we'll go with the Java way. Okay, even the Java way also we have some disadvantages. That's why we'll go with like finally annotation way. Okay, we'll see tomorrow this one. Yeah, is it clear till now?
Yeah, clear, Anna.
Yeah.